this special segment on Shoolini TV. I'm Ashani and today we have the privilege of speaking with Myron Christodoulides, Professor of Bacteriology at the University of Southampton. Professor Christodoulides is an internationally renowned scientist known for his work on infectious diseases, vaccines and global health challenges. Today, in this special conversation, we will be speaking with him on a range of important topics including global health, infectious diseases, scientific research and international collaboration. So it is a pleasure to have you with us today. So how has the experience been so far during your visit here on campus?
Thank you for having me. Actually, this is the first time that I've come to Himachal Pradesh and Shoolini. It's my fourth time I've come to India, and it's the furthest north that we've actually visited. And I have to say, it's a beautiful campus. The scenery is wonderful, and I really like the way that the university has decided to take a very sustainable route towards developing its campus.
What has impressed you the most about Himachal Pradesh and Shoolini campus?
Those very same reasons. I think everything is engineered to fit within the environment. Yeah, nothing is brutalist. Nothing stands out. It all blends in perfectly. It's a very nice place to come and work.
So you have now joined Shoolini University as an Honorary Professor. So what kind of research initiative or collaboration would you like to develop here?
Well, I'm now in my second week here, and we've just finished our first conference on AMR, and having spoken to a lot of the faculty and many of the students on their advanced programs here, I can see that there are a lot of links between the type of research that's going on in Shoolini and the research we do in Southampton, particularly in biological sciences. And the type of research, I think there is scope for a lot of interdisciplinarity. I see a lot of scope for research in microbiology, in studying infectious diseases, and in producing new antimicrobial compounds, that sort of thing. But I also see there's a role for developing diagnostics and introducing more of the engineering aspects into both of our research themes.
So your connection with Shoolini University happened through Dr. Vigan. So how did you first meet him?
I first met Ravi back in 2014, at an international conference in Nigeria. So Ravi then was a master's student, and I was a faculty member. We'd met at the conference, and because we shared an interest in Nigeria, we developed over the last 10 years or so a working collaboration. And once Ravi graduated from University of Delhi, where I was his co-supervisor, he came to work with me in Southampton on a couple of postdoctoral projects, and we've been working successfully. We've published, and I see a continued collaboration with him and with the people that he brings into his research network.
So how did this collaboration evolve over time, sir?
Oh, exactly like that. I mean, it's just through a process of dialogue and shared interest. And when I had questions in my research that I needed answering, that I didn't have the skill set, so for example, all the computational biology, I would give Ravi a call and say, Ravi, we have a problem, how can we deal with this? And then he would provide his expertise.
So how do you see the future of research collaboration between the University of Southampton and Shoolini University?
Well, it is very early days. In fact, it's the earliest of days. I think the way we need to develop the whole collaboration is to build on the MOU, the Memorandum of Understanding that's already been established. But I think what that will require is a lot more engagement between the academics in Southampton and the academics in Shoolini. what I would also like to do is start in enrolling students from Shoolini into some of our undergraduate and master's programs, where they can come for example, for a semester and come and work in some of our labs, pick up some new techniques, learn how different supervisors work in the UK compared to how they work over here. So I think probably the next year or so is going to be critical in starting the ball rolling in terms of really a formal collaboration.
You have worked extensively on infectious diseases and vaccine research, including during the COVID-19 pandemic. What were the biggest scientific lessons during that period?
During COVID,
Yes, sir.
COVID was a big issue for us in the UK as elsewhere, because the major impact on our work is that it stopped people working. If you didn't work on infectious diseases, your labs were closed. You had to work at home, and so that impacted heavily on the progress of our students. So our PhD students had to have their programs extended in order for them to make up for the time they'd lost. And this was, 6 months to a year almost. I was fortunate in that because we work in microbiology, we have a category 3 isolation lab where we could work with COVID samples from patients. And so at the beginning of the outbreak, we were allowed to still come into work, so very few of us were allowed to go in. I was given a dispensation note from the dean to go into work, and we spent most of our time trying to develop diagnostic kits, rapid kits for COVID. So in a way, it didn't really impact me that heavily, but it did other people who weren't working in infectious diseases.
So during the pandemic, vaccines were developed at an unprecedented speed. So what did that experience teach the scientific community about global health preparedness?
Well, that's an interesting question, because in a way, we really should have been prepared for COVID-19, for SARS-CoV-2, following the experience of the SARS-CoV-1 outbreak in Southeast Asia almost a decade before. So let me give you an example. The UK government, after the outbreak in Southeast Asia, where the South Koreans had rapidly controlled the infection outbreak, the UK government tried to learn lessons from that outbreak in terms of pandemic preparedness, but to be honest, they really didn't enact quickly enough. The difference between the two outbreaks is obviously that SARS-CoV-1 wasn't transmissible as a virus like CoV-2. We could spend hours talking about the pandemic and ways we could have approached how to control, population movement within countries and without countries. I think we are becoming more prepared for a potential pandemic in the future, based on our abilities to diagnose disease and also to introduce AI as a possible method to predict future outbreaks.
So your research also focuses on neglected tropical diseases such as leishmaniasis. Why is it important for scientists to work on diseases that often receive global attention?
Well, the very fact that they're called neglected tropical diseases, okay? And the reason that they're neglected is because they don't, if I'm frank, they don't really impact on the developed world. So these are diseases that you don't see in North America, you don't see in Europe. They're diseases that affect the countries with the lowest income levels, the low middle income countries, the least developed countries, and most of those are in Africa and Southeast Asia. It is important because they present a high burden of disease. It's morbidity as much as mortality. So patients with neglected diseases like um, worm infections, it's a heavy burden on individuals, and it actually impacts on the economic development of these countries because people can't work because they're incapacitated. So I think it's important that we deal with these diseases in order to raise the development status of the low middle income countries.
So today the world is facing new kinds of conflicts and security threats. Do you think biological weapons or engineered pathogens could become a risk in future wars?
I hope not. There is a moratorium on developing biological weapons. I know that many countries still hold repositories of smallpox. So the UK, the US, the Russians, the US still keep a repository of this vaccine. It isn't difficult to develop biological weapons. We know there's a potential threat, and so research communities, principally through defence ministries, have been working for many years on developing antidotes and anti-biological weapons, so for example vaccines and drugs, and they've been trialled. They've been trialled in combat areas. It is something that we have to think about, but I think the global community is aware that it's a potentially an extinction event if you lose control of a biological weapon.
From a scientist's perspective, how prepared is the global scientific community to detect and respond to such biological threats?
Well, a lot of that information is probably classified. I mean, if you're talking about biological weapons, if the organisms that are potential biological weapons are being worked on extensively by the research community. So there will be an element of preparedness, I imagine, yes.
So antimicrobial resistance is becoming a major global concern. How serious is this problem and what can be done to address it?
Well, antimicrobial resistance by 2050 is predicted to kill 10 million people a year. That in itself is not an extinction event, relative to the size of the global population, but it is a major problem because it also has a huge economic cost. So the cost of dealing with people that have untreatable disease runs into the trillions of dollars, and then this is per annum. So it's a health issue and an economic issue.
India is emerging as a strong research hub.
Yeah.
What opportunities do you see for Indian scientists and students in global health research?
I see the greatest opportunity because you have the population size and the talent base to contribute to research and development. Yeah, there should be no issues. We should all be working together on these sorts of problems.
What role do international collaborations play in solving global health challenges?
They're absolutely essential. You cannot work in isolation. You need to build collaborations globally between all partners, regardless of political backgrounds or issues or concerns, because that's the only way you're going to be able to confront the emergence of new diseases. So collaboration is absolutely essential.
What role do international collaborations play in solving global health challenges?
Well, as I've said, they're absolutely essential. You can't treat an international problem without having international collaboration. because diseases move across boundaries, as we've seen with COVID. There are no immigration barriers to the movement of an infectious disease.
How important is interdisciplinary research when dealing with complex health problems like pandemics?
It's becoming more important. We noticed during COVID that interdisciplinary research enabled the development of new diagnostics and also engineered isolation units and that sort of thing. But I think before that, you need to have not an interdisciplinary, but a singular discipline, in that you need to understand the pathogen. You need to understand how the pathogen evolved, its natural environment, and how the pathogen jumped from an animal reservoir to a human reservoir, and then was able to be transmitted from a human to human. So understanding the fundamental biology of human and animal pathogens is necessary before anything else.
What qualities should young researchers develop if they want to build a successful career in biomedical sciences, sir?
Well, I tell my students the most important thing in any stage of their career, whether they're just starting day one, or they've spent 10 years in research, or myself who spent more than 30, the most important thing is that you have to read the literature, try to keep up to date with what's new developments are coming, and that, I think, will continue to give you new ideas. So that's what stimulates research, is being aware of what everybody else is working on around you.
For students who are interested in microbiology or infectious disease research, where should they begin?
Where should they begin?
Yes, sir.
Well, again, I mean, if I give you my example, I began through a personal interest. So when I was at school, I studied human biology and zoology, and then when I went to university, I studied microbiology, and then developed an interest in infection, because microbiology is a broad subject. You can build a career just looking at infectious disease, or you can build a career looking at environmental microbiology, food microbiology. There's a whole range of different types of research that you can do in microbiology, but mine was infectious disease because I wanted to understand how these small organisms, from a virus to a parasite, can cause such dramatic changes to the human and animal condition. So that's what interested me, the pathology and the pathophysiology. How do these organisms cause disease?
Finally, sir, what message would you like to share with the young students and researchers at Shoolini University?
I think you must be broad-minded. You must not be narrow in your outlook. You must not be singularly focused on your problem, your project. This is the only thing I'm going to work on. No, you must broaden your mind, broaden your network, think outside the box, be open to other people's ideas, and look for collaboration. Try and build networks, go to conferences, and go to lectures, for example, that you wouldn't think was directly relevant or had no relevance to what you were researching at the time. So I think you have to have an open mind. Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us, sir, and thank you for sharing your valuable insights.
You're welcome. Thank you very much.